One of the toughest jobs in Australia, no doubt, is that of corporate regulator ASIC. It's criticised if it's perceived to be too tough on directors, fund managers and others in business. It's also criticised, as it was through the Banking Royal Commission, if it's perceived to have been too soft, not to have taken action that it should have. But today the risks inside business are multiplying and ASIC is reassessing its own priority. The chairman of the Australian Securities and Investments Commission is Joe Longo, who joins me now. Joe, many thanks for your time. I just want to go to some of those risks inside business right now. You this year, in the course of a number of speeches, have laid some of the non-financial risks out. But this is not just about the letter of the law. It's also about culture. It's also about the evolution of community standards. Is that something that ASIC is really trying to press onto company directors and onto businesses generally?
No, that's actually a very good way of putting it, Ross. It's always an incomplete way of looking at corporate standards of compliance to say, well, I've done what the law expects of me, and that's enough. That is not the way to look at it. And the way ASIC is inviting business and the general community to look at it is that the community expects high standards of conduct, that we put the customer, the consumer at the centre of everything we do, and that we expect high standards of ethics and an approach which is not legalistic but is intended to really encourage people to be confident when they engage in the economy. I mean, in the end, that's what we want people to do, to be able to engage with business and to be able to go about their affairs confidently.
How easy is it, do you think, for company directors, for executives, to understand the evolution of standards and expectations and morals inside our community and to ensure that there is no risk being built, a non-financial risk being built inside their own business?
Yeah. Yes. Well, from the point of view of risk-taking, I've said publicly that the business is all about risk-taking. So I'm not here, ASIC is not here to discourage company directors or people running businesses or corporations from taking risk. We all have to take risk. Even the regulator has to take risk when we make decisions about what action to take or not take, or take a position. So the first thing about risk-taking is it's a daily part of our lives, and it's how we approach risk that matters the most. But from my perspective, what I'm looking for are high standards of transparency and acknowledgement of those risks. And if things go wrong, as they inevitably do from time to time, my expectation of corporations, and certainly the bigger end of town, is that they will step up and acknowledge those problems and address them.
So then you come to the priorities, and some of those that you've identified in the past. Financial scams are a pretty obvious one, but they're becoming highly sophisticated. And crypto assets is another you've identified. So in terms of your priorities going ahead, it means that really business has got to learn, they've got to understand that there are risks going to emerge that will affect not only their business, but even the behaviour of their employees and maybe even affect their investors.
Yeah. Well, it's not just about talking about it through the lens of risk. I mean, you've mentioned scams and crypto. We've had scams as part of a problem in our society for many years. However, it's now being acknowledged that that issue has grown very significantly in recent years. And there's a widespread acknowledgement now that we need to do much better, not only among regulators and from a government perspective, but also on the part of ADIs and banks who are also part of the sort of the ecosystem that consumers are dealing with. So scams is a very good example of where the modern technology, digitisation, the broadening of the availability of products to consumers has really turbocharged that problem. So it's a major priority for us, working with other regulators and government, to do what we can to mitigate the problems that are being raised with scams.
And so in your mind, as the chair of ASIC, do you prosecute first and hope the law comes with you? Or is it a case that you try and push for the law to evolve in areas such as scams or digital assets where there may not have been laws previously?
We have a broad regulatory toolkit. It's not just about prosecuting or litigating breaches of legislation, that'll always be a key part of our strategy. But in the scams area, for example, we have a wide range of strategies. We work with other regulators, the ACCC in particular. We're working with the banks to look for ways of helping consumers avoid getting caught up in scams. We have a strategy around education in this respect as well. So law enforcement is a key part of our strategy always, but we cannot simply rely on prosecutions to get the result we're looking for.
So on a daily or weekly basis, I see the releases come from ASIC and I see the amount of action you're taking against individuals or organisations. And I've got to say, for anybody who hasn't understood that, it's significant. There's a significant amount of action. What I want to ask you about is corporate behaviour. With the amount that I'm seeing, dozens and dozens of actions per month, it makes me wonder about whether corporate behaviour is improving, that ASIC has to take these actions.
Well, there'll always be actions for us to take, and there'll always be, frankly, more actions we can take than we are resourced to take. Our job is to be very strategic in the actions we take. And you're right, Ross, there's a wide range of enforcement activity that we undertake. There's a good reason for that. Our mandate is very broad, again, around superannuation, insurance, greenwashing, financial advice, corporate behaviour. There's a whole range of issues that ASIC is there to deal with. So no one should be surprised that an active law enforcement agency, which is what we are, will be directing its resources across a wide range of misconduct and misbehaviour. In terms of impact, I would like to think that the standards of corporate behaviour have not gone backwards. If anything, they've gone forwards, I think, over the last year or two. I think there's been a widespread learning from the fallout from the Royal Commission. And there's, I think, a widespread acknowledgement in the community of wanting to do the right thing. But having said that, there'll always be people or entities that will do the wrong thing, and we will take action against them. There'll always be people like that.
So Joe Longo, the Chair of the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, good to have a chat to you today. Many thanks for your time.